Let me ask you something. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you were designed to live is your focus? What if the battlefield isn't out there, but right here in your mind? See, you've been busy, but you haven't been productive. You've been moving, but you haven't been advancing. Why? Because your mind is distracted, divided, and deceived. But I came to tell you today it's time to focus. It's time to conquer your mind. You weren't created to live in confusion. You weren't created to chase every shiny thing and end up with nothing. No, you were designed for dominion. You were built for clarity, and you were born to win. So today, we're not just going to talk about motivation. We're going to activate transformation. This is your moment to get focused, to silence the noise, and to take back the power that's been yours all along. Let's go. See, the reason some of us feel stuck, why some of us feel like we're spinning our wheels, isn't because we lack talent. It's not because we're not capable. It's not because we don't have vision. No, the issue is we're living in a world that is designed to distract us. And here's the danger. Every moment you're distracted, you're being delayed. Every time you shift your focus from what matters to what's urgent but irrelevant, you're stepping away from your assignment and toward your destruction. The enemy of your soul doesn't have to destroy you if he can distract you. Because if he can't stop your purpose, he'll try to scatter your focus. And if he can scatter your focus, he can neutralize your power. We have people out here with million-dollar ideas, billion-dollar potential, but dime-store attention spans. You can't build greatness if your mind is rented out to everything and everybody. Some of you are called to build empires, but you're letting notifications run your day. You're letting opinions guide your decisions. You're letting temporary pleasure rob you of permanent purpose. And let's just be real, some of us are not busy, we're just addicted to noise, addicted to scrolling, addicted to comparing, addicted to proving ourselves to people who don't even have a clue about our calling. And that addiction is costing you everything. Let me give you the truth, distraction is expensive. Every time you let your attention drift, you pay in time, you pay in energy, and you pay in opportunity. Some of you have been praying for breakthrough, for clarity, for favor, but God's been waiting on you to shut out the noise. You're asking for direction, but you've got 10 tabs open in your mind. You can't hear divine instruction when you're tuned into every frequency, but heavens. Distraction is not always obvious. Sometimes it's dressed up as opportunity. Sometimes it looks like a good idea, but not a God idea. Just because it glitters doesn't mean it's gold, and just because it pays doesn't mean it's your path. That's why you need focus. Focus isn't just about productivity, it's about protection. When you focus, you're protecting your mind from fragmentation, you're protecting your energy from depletion, and you're protecting your purpose from distortion. Let's go deeper. Distraction doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes the biggest distractions live inside your own head. That voice that tells you you're not ready, that fear that whispers, what if you fail, that comparison that screams you're behind. Let me speak directly to that inner critic. You are not behind, you are being built. You're not late, you're in process. And the reason it feels like resistance is because anything worth doing will always attract opposition. Your mind wants comfort, but your destiny demands commitment. You got to train your focus like a warrior sharpens his sword. You can't afford to be casual about your attention. You can't be passive about your direction. Focus is not a mood, it's a muscle, and muscles don't grow by accident. They grow through resistance. So if it feels hard to focus, that's confirmation you're on the right track. You're not supposed to float into destiny, you fight your way into it. You press, you push, you choose it daily. And listen, the higher your calling, the greater the level of distraction that'll come to pull you away from it. That's why the moment you decide to get serious about your purpose, you'll notice everything starts competing for your time. That's not a sign to stop, that's a sign to lock in. You're not in the wrong lane, you're under attack because you're a threat. You're being tested not to break you, but to build your capacity. If you want to live a focused life, you're going to have to make hard choices. You're going to have to say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things. You're going to have to disappoint people to stay aligned with purpose. You're going to have to shut some doors, close some tabs, turn off the noise, and center your spirit. And you're going to have to do it daily. Focus is not a one-time decision, it's a lifestyle. Here's what I know. When you eliminate distraction, you elevate destiny. When you cut the noise, you create the space for revelation. When you get serious about protecting your focus, you get serious about honoring your calling. And when your mind is clear, your path becomes visible. Suddenly, what felt impossible becomes inevitable, not because circumstances changed, but because you did. So I need you to make a decision right now, not an emotional moment, but a firm, committed inner vow. I will not allow distraction to rob me of my destiny. Not this year, not this season, not this moment. Your focus is your freedom. And your freedom is your weapon. You can't conquer your life until you conquer your thoughts. That's not just a nice phrase, it's a spiritual law, a divine principle. and a success strategy all wrapped into one. Because everything you're seeing on the outside, your habits, your relationships, your results, it all started in the mind. The battlefield isn't your bank account, it's not your schedule, it's not even your circumstances. The real battle is internal. The war is being fought in your thoughts, in your beliefs, and in what you've accepted as truth. See, the problem is not that you don't have a vision. The problem is that your mind has been conditioned to reject it. You've been given a dream, but your thoughts keep dragging you back into doubt. You want elevation, but your thoughts are anchored in fear. You're trying to walk in purpose, but your thinking is still shaped by pain, by trauma, by lies that were spoken over you when you didn't know how to protect your identity. So what happens? You build big plans with a small mindset. You start moving, but then you sabotage yourself, not because you're weak, but because your thoughts haven't caught up with your calling. Let me tell you this, your mind will always move in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. So if your thoughts are toxic, your life will start to reflect the toxicity. If your thoughts are limited, your actions will shrink to match that limitation. You could have all the potential in the world, but if your thinking is out of alignment, you'll keep settling for less. It's like having a Ferrari with the engine of a lawnmower. You weren't built to crawl through life, you were designed to dominate. But domination begins in the mind. That's why the greatest work you'll ever do is not on your goals, it's in your mindset. Because if you don't change your thoughts will change you. If you don't conquer your mind will conquer you. And let me tell you, it doesn't care about your goals. Your mind doesn't care about your vision if it's still running on old programming. Some of you are trying to live in faith, but your thoughts are trapped in fear. You're trying to build abundance, but your thoughts are still rooted in lack. That's a battle you cannot afford to lose. This is deeper than just think positive. I'm not talking about hype, I'm talking about identity. What do you believe about yourself when no one's watching? What thoughts do you entertain when you fail? When you get rejected? When you feel overlooked? That's where the real war is happening. Not on the stage, not in public, but in that private space where you choose either to believe the lie that says you're not enough or to believe the truth that says you were born for this. You've got to interrupt the cycle. You've got to take authority over your thoughts. And I don't mean one time, I mean every day. You wake up and you decide what gets to live in your mind. You decide what narrative is going to rule your spirit. You decide that every thought that doesn't serve your purpose is getting evicted. You treat your mind like sacred ground because it is. You don't just let anything walk in and take up space. You guard it like your future depends on it because it does. Some of you have dreams bigger than what your current mindset can sustain. And that's okay. That's not a sign to shrink the dream. It's a signal to elevate your thinking. You've got to expand your inner world to match the size of your assignment. That means feeding your mind with truth, rewiring your patterns, replacing fear with faith, speaking to yourself with the authority of someone who knows who they are and whose they are. And let's be real, it's hard. Changing your mind isn't just hard, it's warfare. Because you're not just dealing with thoughts, you're dealing with strongholds, patterns, narratives that have been reinforced for years. But here's the good news, they can be broken. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not possible. Your mind is not your enemy, it's your battlefield. And the one who fights with focus will always win. Every time you replace a lie with the truth, you take ground. Every time you choose gratitude over fear, faith over doubt, you take ground. Every time you tell yourself, I am enough, I am called, I am equipped, you're not just saying words, you're reprogramming the operating system of your life. And once your mind shifts, your life has no choice but to follow. But let me warn you, this isn't something you do for a week and expect to see fruit. You've got to be relentless. You've got to be non-negotiable. You've got to treat the renewal of your mind like oxygen, something you need daily to live, to lead, and to launch into your next level. Because you can't conquer your future if you're still a prisoner of your past thinking. You've got too much purpose on your life to let negative thoughts rob you of your power. You've got too much to build, too much to create, too much to impact. So it's time. Time to take your mind off autopilot. Time to stand guard at the gate. Time to declare war on every thought that's kept you playing small. Clarity creates confidence, confusion kills momentum. And that's not just motivational talk, that's a principle of power. Let me say it again, clarity creates confidence. If you're unclear, you're unsure, if you're unstable. If you're confused, you're stuck. And the reason so many people are spinning their wheels, feeling overwhelmed, jumping from one thing to the next with nothing to show for it, it's not because they lack ambition. It's because they lack clarity, and when you don't have clarity, you don't know what to say yes to, and more importantly, you don't know what to say no to. Confusion doesn't just delay your progress, it drains your spirit. You wake up feeling exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because your soul is tangled in indecision. You're chasing too many directions, answering too many voices, trying to be too many versions of yourself. And what that does is it divides your energy. And anything divided will eventually be defeated. You can't walk in divine confidence when your mind is pulled in 1,000 directions. Let me break it down like this. Confidence is not just walking into a room like you own it. Real confidence is when your decisions are in alignment with your vision, when you know why you're doing what you're doing, and you're no longer apologizing for it. Clarity gives you that. When you're clear, you move with conviction. You don't waste time on distractions. You don't second guess every step. You don't need external validation because you've already received internal direction. But confusion is a silent killer. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It whispers in the form of procrastination, in the form of hesitation, in the form of I'll start when I have more time or I need to research just a little more. That's not preparation, that's paralysis. And some of you have been parked in confusion so long you've started calling it normal. But it's not normal, it's a trap. The longer you sit in confusion, the more your momentum bleeds out. And when momentum dies, motivation doesn't matter. Here's what I know. The most successful people in any area of life are not the most talented, and they're not the most gifted. They're the most clear. They know their assignment. They know what lane they're running in. They know who they're called to serve and who they're not, and because of that, they move fast, they move strong, and they move without apology. It's not arrogance, it's alignment, because when clarity shows up, confidence walks in the room with it. Some of you have vision but no clarity, and vision without clarity is like having a map but no compass. You can see the destination, but you don't know which turn to take, so you waste years making circles in the wilderness. Not because the vision isn't real, but because you haven't taken time to define the direction. And hear me, if the enemy can't stop your vision, he'll cloud your clarity, because he knows a confused believer is a powerless one. A distracted builder can't finish anything. You can't conquer territory when you're still asking which way to go. That's why you've got to get still. You've got to shut off the noise. You've got to silence the opinions, step back from the chaos, and ask the hard questions. What am I really here for? What's the real assignment? Who am I really called to impact? What season am I in? Because if you don't know what season you're in, you'll be planting when you should be harvesting. You'll be grinding when you should be growing. You'll be reacting instead of ruling. Clarity doesn't always come in a flash. Sometimes it's a process, but you've got to pursue it like your destiny depends on it, because it does. You've got to get ruthless about it, ruthless about your priorities, ruthless about alignment, ruthless about staying in your lane. Because when you're clear, you stop wasting energy on what doesn't belong to you. You stop competing with people who are on a different path. You stop accepting invitations to battles you were never called to fight. And let me tell you, clarity is spiritual. It's not just mental, it's prophetic. When you're clear, you walk differently. You speak with authority. You operate with a sense of direction that confuses people who are still wandering. You become magnetic not because of your charisma, but because of your certainty. The people you're called to serve can feel it. They know when someone is walking in clarity. They trust your voice because they can sense you're not guessing you know. Don't let confusion rob you another day. Don't let indecision masquerade as strategy. Don't let fear dress up as wisdom. Clarity doesn't mean you have every step mapped out. It means you know where you're headed and why it matters. It means you've made peace with the fact that not everyone's going to understand, and you're okay with that. Because you're not building for applause, you're building for assignment. You're not here to please people, you're here to fulfill purpose. When you get clear, you get dangerous. You become a threat to everything that was sent to distract you. You start building what you were born to build. You start speaking what you were born to speak. And you start moving with the kind of momentum that turns heads, not because you're chasing clout, but because you're walking in calling. See, potential by itself doesn't change anything. It's not enough to be gifted, to be talented, to have vision, dreams, goals, and ambition. That's not where transformation happens. Potential is the seed, but focus is the water, the sunlight, and the soil that turns that seed into something real. You can be sitting on greatness and still never experience it if you don't have the focus to activate it. Because what you don't harness, you will never harvest. There are people walking around with the potential to shift nations, to build legacies, to break generational cycles, but their power is leaking through the cracks of distraction. They're pulled in every direction, entertaining everything and executing nothing. And the truth is, most people don't fail because they don't have what it takes. They fail because they never aimed what they have. You've got energy, but where's it going? You've got passion, but what's it producing? You've got ideas, but have any of them become discipline? That's what separates good from great. It's not how much you have, it's how well you can direct it. Focus is what takes raw ability and forges it into influence. Focus is what turns scattered energy into measurable impact. When you focus, you give your potential a target. You say, this is where I'm aiming. This is what matters. This is what gets my yes. And anything that doesn't serve that direction, it doesn't get your time. It doesn't get your energy. It doesn't get your response. Because you're not just trying to be busy, you're trying to be effective. So many people confuse motion with momentum. They think because they're always moving, they must be growing. But growth isn't about how fast you're running. It's about how aligned your steps are. You can sprint in the wrong direction and still lose the race. But when you're focused, every step is strategic. Every move is intention. Every hour is invested, not just spent. That's when your life starts to compound. That's when your small, consistent actions begin to create big, undeniable results. Focus doesn't make your journey easy, it makes it worth it. It forces you to say no to distractions. It pulls you out of comfort, it demands discipline. Because to focus is to choose not to be average. And let's be honest, average is comfortable. Average is familiar, but average will never satisfy someone who's tasted vision. Once you've seen what's possible, you can't unsee it. And now your only choice is to close the gap between who you are and who you were born to become. Focus is how you close that gap. You can't afford to give your power away to things that don't push you forward. You can't keep leaking your greatness through habits that serve your emotions but sabotage your purpose. Focus requires you to mature. It requires you to decide, I'm done chasing everything. I'm done reacting to every distraction. I'm done starting things I never finish. I'm locking in. And when you lock in, things begin to shift. Heaven begins to align. Resources begin to flow, not because the universe suddenly favored you, but because you finally got in alignment with what was already in you. Understand this, God didn't give you potential just so you could be impressive. He gave it to you so you could impact, so you could change lives, leave a mark, disrupt systems, build something that lasts. But He's not obligated to bless confusion. He doesn't multiply chaos. You've got to give Him something focused, something formed, something disciplined. Because once you focus, He can favor what you're building. Once you aim your potential, He can anoint the process. Some of you are one decision away from radical momentum, not because you need more talent, not because you need more money, but because you need to finally focus. You need to stop touching everything and master something. Stop bouncing from plan to plan and plant deep in purpose. And don't let the fear of missing out rob you of what's already been assigned to you. You're not missing anything that belongs to you, but you will miss your moment if you keep splitting your attention between what's urgent and what's eternal. Focus also means trusting the process. It means staying the course when it feels like nothing's moving. Because focus doesn't always look exciting. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's hidden, but it's always working. And the enemy of your soul would love for you to believe that focus seasons are wasted seasons. But that's a lie. Focus seasons are foundation seasons. That's where roots go deep. That's where vision gets refined. That's where leaders are formed. You don't need spotlight, you need stamina. You don't need applause, you need alignment. And here's the truth. The moment you start focusing is the moment you start walking in authority. Because now your yes has weight. Now your presence has purpose. Now you're not just existing, you're executing. You're not just interested, you're invested. And that's when the shift happens. That's when you stop surviving and start building. That's when the things that used to distract you start to look small because your vision has gotten too big to entertain nonsense. So if you're ready to unlock your power, don't look for another secret, another shortcut, or another strategy. Just make the decision, I'm going to focus. I'm going to take what I have, aim it at purpose, and watch potential turn into power. Your environment will either feed your focus or fuel your frustration. And the truth is, no matter how strong your vision is, if you stay planted in the wrong environment, you will eventually shrink to fit it. You were not designed to thrive in every space. You were designed to thrive in the right space. That's why who you surround yourself with matters. That's why what you expose yourself to matters. Because your environment doesn't just influence your mood, it influences your mindset, your momentum, your mission. You can't expect to grow while you're surrounded by people who are committed to staying small. You can't rise if your atmosphere is filled with doubt, distraction, and drama. And let me tell you, this isn't about ego, this is about energy. Some people don't even realize they're draining you because they're so used to living in limitation. They've normalized fear. They've embraced mediocrity. So when you start speaking vision, when you start making moves, when you start shifting into purpose, it triggers their insecurity. And if you're not careful, their fear will start to sound like wisdom. Their doubt will start to look like caution. And if you don't guard your mind, you'll begin to play small, not because you lost your passion, but because your environment conditioned you to believe that your purpose was too much. It's not always about cutting people off. It's about creating alignment. It's about asking, does this environment push me or paralyze me? Does it challenge me or comfort me into complacency? Because the truth is, you become what you are consistently around. And that's not just personal, that's spiritual. Even Jesus couldn't do many miracles in certain places, not because he lacked power, but because the environment lacked faith. That should tell you everything. Atmosphere matters. Agreement matters. What you allow to surround you will eventually settle in you. So now the question is, are you choosing environments that reflect your history or environments that stretch your destiny? Are you surrounding yourself with people who remind you of your past or people who speak to your potential? Because it's hard to walk into the future when you're constantly pulled back by people who only see who you were. You need to be around people who challenge your excuses, who hold you accountable, who call out the king or queen in you even when you don't feel like one. You need to be in rooms where the conversations align with your calling. Rooms where growth isn't optional, it's expected. Rooms where faith isn't weird, it's normal. And let's be clear, upgrading your environment doesn't mean you think you're better than anybody. It means you've decided to honor what's in you. It means you've realized that your assignment is too important to let it be contaminated by compromise. It means you're no longer available for environments that feed your doubt more than your discipline. Because your focus is precious, your energy is sacred, and when you give access to people or places that don't align with your purpose, you start leaking. You start giving away your greatness piece by piece. Not all at once, but slowly, subtly, until one day you wake up and you don't recognize the fire that once burned in you. That's why you've got to be intentional. Your growth depends on it. Your mindset depends on it. Your legacy depends on it. If you're serious about conquering your mind, then you've got to be serious about creating your environment. Turn down the volume on noise that doesn't feed your focus. Disconnect from atmospheres that tolerate your stagnation. Walk away from anything that makes you shrink, hide, or question who you are. You were never meant to blend in, you were built to break through. But breakthrough doesn't happen in bondage, it happens in alignment. There are some environments that may feel familiar, but they're costing you your future. Some conversations may feel comfortable, but they're slowly killing your calling. Some friendships may be long-standing, but they're not life-giving, and the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to see clearly. That's why discernment is key. Not everything that looks supportive is supportive. Not everything that claps for you is connected to your calling. You've got to be willing to step back and evaluate, is this helping me grow? Is this pushing me toward purpose? Or is this keeping me distracted, comfortable, predictable? You don't need an audience to grow. You need an atmosphere, one that stirs your faith, one that sharpens your vision, one that doesn't just comfort you when you're weak, but calls you higher when you're settling. That kind of environment doesn't just protect your progress, it multiplies it. It stretches you. It speaks to you differently. It reminds you of what you said you were building when you felt the fire the first time. It keeps your standards high even when your emotions are low. That's the kind of soil where greatness takes root. So if you want to see change, stop trying to force growth in barren places. Stop hoping for fruit in soil that was never meant to carry your seed. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is move, shift, elevate your environment before you suffocate your purpose. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. Just align with it. Because when your environment is right, everything else starts to accelerate. Focus becomes easier, discipline becomes natural, confidence becomes a byproduct of your atmosphere. Transformation doesn't come from intention, it comes from execution. You can have the best strategy, the clearest vision, the most powerful motivation, but if you never take action, if you never execute, nothing changes. Execution is the bridge between revelation and manifestation. It's the difference between talking about it and walking in it. It's the thing that separates those who dream from those who dominate. The ones who get results are not always the smartest, the most talented, or even the most experienced. They're the ones who execute. You've heard enough. You've planned enough. You've researched enough. You've gone to enough seminars, watched enough videos, read enough books. But at some point, you've got to decide, I'm not going to just collect information, I'm going to move on it. Because information without execution is just entertainment. It might excite you for a moment, but it will never empower your life until you do something with it. Execution is what builds the muscle of mastery. Execution is how you train your mind to obey your mission instead of your emotions. A lot of people think they're stuck because of circumstances, but what's really keeping them stuck is hesitation, indecision, the fear of failing, the fear of judgment, the fear of getting it wrong. But hear me, progress doesn't require perfection. You don't have to have every step mapped out. You don't need the whole staircase to take the first step. You just need the courage to act on what you know. The clarity will come, the confidence will come. But movement is what activates momentum. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting until you feel ready. The truth is, most of your growth will happen after you move, not before. Execution brings out the real lesson. You'll learn more in a week of action than in a year of overthinking. You'll grow more by doing than by delaying. You don't need another opinion, you need obedience. You already know what you're supposed to do. You just need to do it, and do it with intensity, with focus, with fire, like your future depends on it, because it does. Your destiny is voice activated, yes, but it's also action dependent. Faith without works is dead, and so is vision without execution. You can pray all day, you can journal all night, but until you put your hands on the plow and start building, nothing moves. This is the season to build, to move, to create, to execute on the word, the idea, the assignment you've been sitting on. It's not going to manifest by itself. Heaven responds to motion. Resources respond to action. You want alignment? Start walking. You want increase? Start moving. The provision shows up when you show up. And let me tell you something about execution. It's not always glamorous. It's not always loud. It's not always exciting. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it feels like no one sees you. But don't mistake silence for insignificance. What you're building in private will speak for itself in public. Just stay consistent, stay committed, master the mundane, because greatness isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the shadows, in the repetition, in the decision to keep going even when it's hard. The reason most people don't execute isn't because they don't know how, it's because they're addicted to the emotional high of starting, but allergic to the discipline of continuing. They want the results, but not the routine. They want the reward, but not the repetition. But champions are not crowned because of how well they start, they're crowned because they finished. You've got to learn how to finish. Finish what you start. Execute what you said you were going to do. Follow through on what you committed to when you were inspired, even after the feeling is gone. You've got to shift from emotion to execution, because feelings are temporary, but legacy is permanent. You're not building for applause, you're building for impact. And impact requires consistency. It requires grit. It requires discipline when motivation runs dry. It requires becoming the kind of person who did but pushed to do what they said they were going to do. That's execution, that's maturity, that's mastery. And don't think execution means doing it all at once. No, execution is about daily obedience, small steps done consistently with big faith. Because success is not in the occasional bursts, it's in the consistent execution. One brick at a time, one action at a time, one day at a time, that's how you build something that lasts. That's how you leave a legacy. That's how you conquer your mind, by training it to act, not react. By programming it to follow through, not fall back. There's a level of breakthrough waiting on the other side of your execution. You've envisioned it, you've prayed for it, you've even cried for it. Now it's time to build it. The door is already unlocked, it's your movement that turns the handle. You've got what it takes. You have the vision, you have the calling. Now activate the courage, activate the discipline, activate the executor within you.